Hello, and welcome to our presentation on social identity and the psychology of groups. Social and personal identity conflicts in the context of groups arose when Colin Kaepernick, an NFL player, refused to stand during the national anthem, choosing instead to take a knee as a sign of protest against the United States and its historical violent maltreatment of people of color, notably how violently black and brown bodies are policed, often with no repercussions for the violent perpetrators. This highly polarizing issue left the NFL and its fans in the dilemma of having to choose between their social in-groups, such as their sports team, and potential out-groups of political and racial identity. Conflicts of this nature develop in situations where perceived difference between the individual's in-group and an out-group lead to the projection of a negative social identity upon an individual. A typical reaction has been the in-group bias effect. In this case, the in-group bias dictates that fans will remain loyal to their team regardless of the controversial behavior of a player. In contrast, the black sheep effect, which says fans will continually be loyal to the team but distance themselves from the controversial player and deem them as not representative of the entire team, also played a role in this political drama. Stereotyping, categorization, and depersonalization are psychological techniques used to simplify and make sense of complex social identities. Colin Kaepernick's social group identity is complex. Some of his identity attributes intersect and some clash. Biologically, Kaepernick is both African American and Caucasian. He was adopted, but he is not an orphan. He presents as black, but was raised in a white family. Growing up, outsiders often questioned if he was a member of his own family due to stereotyping and categorization based on his skin tone. A stereotype is a belief that an attribute is correlated with a social category. The process of categorization perceptually accentuates stereotypical similarities within categories. Being categorized causes people to discriminate. Categorization is used to define others in terms of group identity and to discriminate in order to make one group positively distinct from another. People have categorized Kaepernick based on his race, politics, and sports identity and discriminate against him accordingly. In the context of social psychology, depersonalization means viewing someone as having the attributes of a category, not of an individual. It is an extreme form of categorization in which the individual is completely stripped of personal or group identity attributes and instead represents a social category. Kaepernick's identity has been depersonalized. Society associates his name with political protests of police brutality against people of color, as a black man, or as a football star who has been disenfranchised, instead of as an individual with his own unique personality and social identifications. Kaepernick has come to represent social categories and stereotypes instead of individual traits. Is he a traitor or a hero? Kaepernick's social group identity, which is actually quite complex, has been limited to categorical imperatives. Colin Kaepernick's story of political protest and discrimination does not have a cohesive conclusion. He agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement about his recent settlement awarded from his lawsuit against the NFL, so the world will never know exactly how the NFL discriminated against him. The ambiguity the world is left with is similar to the ambiguity that all social identities harbor, although we may try to make sense of our own identities through many of the techniques discussed in this presentation. Identity, like the Kaepernick story, is ultimately ambiguous and impossible to completely define.